technology moves really fast. Every month, Instagram changes its rules, Facebook changes its rules. So you have to go back to be like, what is graphic design actually? So start unmuting yourselves. Let's get back to the basic and tell me what you think graphic design is in its essence.
It's like to like show your message, like what you're trying to tell through design. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely like its main and primary purpose. But the word graphic essentially means absolutely clear, absolutely vivid. You know, when someone says graphic content ahead or graphic details, you know, it's like the most detailed, most real picture of something is what graphic means as far as the dictionary is concerned. And design can be anything, it's about both look and function. So when someone says that's a really good design, it could be a rangoli, it could be like an awesome chair, it could be like a tiny house. So when you're saying like a tiny house, it's not necessarily like the most beautiful thing that you see, but it's about like how functional it is and how you've managed to make one thing do multiple things. So all design, graphic or not, is about solving problems. So usually when you want to give someone a message, it could be like save the planet, don't kill dogs, like come attend my birthday party. An invitation is also essentially graphic design. So it's the use of word plus image that makes anything graphic design and not art and not architecture and not being like a tattoo artist. You know, like there's so many things within the creative sphere that come under like the umbrella of graphic design. But at the same time, what separates graphic design from interior design and website design and all these other things is that it's the combination of word and image to give and send across a message in the most real and effective way possible. So I basically went to school in Delhi, then I went and studied at Chelsea College of Art and Design and London College of Communication. And after that, I wanted this super corporate like job where I wanted to design packaging and I wanted to design magazines. So I got a job with JWT, which was at that time, it was like the fourth largest advertising agency. Like JWT India was the fourth largest advertising agency in the world. And after that, so then we worked with all the really big brands, and then that learning started to steep in. So for example, a big brand is Aquafina water, but does anyone like remember the label of like Bisleri or Aquafina? It's more about who is your audience, who's buying the water. Like that water is not trying to win an award for great design, but it's doing its purpose for looking a certain way so that like multiple people can buy it. So at that point, you start realizing that it's not about me making some phenomenal, like beautiful design that like the whole world is like talking about. It's about, is my message working? So for example, if you make an amazing poster to like for cleanliness, like if you're doing a cleanliness drive and no one shows up to clean anything and the project has not happened because of ineffective graphic design, then the whole point of making that phenomenal drawing and having that phenomenal idea is zero. So if you had made that video for CFI and no one had shown up for CFI, then your graphic design is effectively not graphic design anymore. It's just like a project that is not effective. So every single person has a different like thing that they want to communicate, and this can be you as a human being, like maybe you are the brand, like maybe you're an influencer, maybe you want to, you know, bake something and sell it, maybe you want to, you know, what else you want to do, tell me what you want to do and then I'll give you like an example of what makes it work and what makes it not effective. Anyone? You have like a reason that you want to use graphic design for? Yes, Shom. Was that by mistake?
No, but like I want to create some like nice, like fan art kind of thing.
Okay. So if you want to create fan art, who are you a big who like for whom? Like is it TV? Is it a character? What is it?
It's a YouTuber.
Okay, fine. So let's say you want to make fan art. So now whatever your project is, you have to think of who your audience is first. So your audience for that fan art is other fans, and it's the person himself, right? So now you
Yeah.
have to, like, if you just make a portrait of the person, or if you make like a storyboard or anything that you use with like word and image, it's just like it could be a painting, right? Like, how do you add that layer to it that makes it more like communicative? So maybe you put your favorite like episode on there, or maybe you put like a quote that you think like this person should become famous for, or maybe you don't even make his picture, but you pick like a scene that really impacted you more strongly, and immediately all the people who are true fans will respond and be like, I know what he's talking about. So that's like a reference that only your target audience understands, right? So similarly, like if you're fundraising for, I don't know, feeding dogs, for example, if like you keep putting that fundraiser out and say, I need 5,000 rupees, I need 5,000 rupees, I need 5,000 rupees, it may not work as well as if you use a combination of a word and image that actually strikes a note. It could be like something that happens with your own pet that is very relatable to like all people who like animals. So that is what essentially makes graphic design in the real world like effective and not effective. I was just having a meeting before this where, let's say if I run like an Instagram page for like 3 or 4 different people who do the exact same thing, but even within that, like let's say pizza, right? Like there's Domino's pizza, and then there's like Pizza Hut, and then there's, I don't know where everyone is located right now, but there are like several like pizza brands. And then if you sit and think to, or even burgers, like that's more easy, like Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's. But then like when you think in your mind, like why one product over the other product? Like which is your favorite burger brand?
Burger King.
And why Burger King and
McDonald's.
not, okay, yeah, we're going to start a debate. But why Burger King and not like McDonald's, and why McDonald's and not Burger King?
I don't know, like McDonald's in Korea especially, like I don't think it's like that good in the ingredients they use.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But is it because of like your experience with the product, or is it because of the way they write their content, the way their packaging is, the way maybe you have a childhood memory attached to like Ronald, or maybe Ronald scared you? Do you know what I mean? So every single person, like technically we are all the market, like all of us are target audience for a burger brand. Now, how do you sell your product and how do you make your message more effective through word and image than like another brand's? And the only way to do that is to always, always, always think of your target audience first, right? So now, when you think of your target audience, let's say you want to do marketing, Daniel, since you're like the only one who is in conversation with me, and you have chosen CFI as a topic. So when you, I mean, I'm sure all of you saw the video. CFI was literally like one of the most effective like video pieces I've seen in a really long time, because you are your target audience, which is why you were able to like communicate really, really clearly, right? So if you're a person and you want to be an influencer, for example, who are you targeting? Like if you are targeting young girls, for example, like say you want to be like a role model to people who are younger to you, then you have to talk and make imagery and use words that are like more effective for them. If you want to target like the LGBT community, if you want to target like people who love the environment, like you have to think of, okay, what is my audience? and then you use words and images that will appeal to your audience and not necessarily what are appealing to you at that point in time. So this is like the unfun part of graphic design, because sometimes what you make is like more effective for your message and not as like effective for like what your personal choice is. But that is what eventually makes effective graphic design. So the second point to this is eliminating like layers and layers and layers of um, like biases, and like trying to make something so graphic that anyone and everyone on the whole planet can understand without it having like a cultural connotation. Or so for example, if you are like McDonald's, right? Like, okay, maybe not McDonald's. Like, did you ever watch the Zuzus on, it was like a Vodafone launch thing, right? So
Yeah.
Zuzus were made in South Africa and they used no language, but the story was so clear that it became like a national hit. So whether someone was a Hindi speaker or an English speaker, or like, you know, if someone was like in the south of India or the east of India, the Zuzus were phenomenal because they eliminated all the layers of things that like not everyone like understood. So for example, if you want to do graphic design for like a very narrow target, like you're like, these are the 50 people I need to invite for this event, or these are the 100 people who have this much money and will show up for this, or these are the 1 billion people who should buy my product, your message would keep changing. So at the end of this, I am going to give you homework if you feel like it, where you imagine what your brand is, right? You can like pick anything. You want to be a bakery, you want to be a NGO, you want to be a multinational airline. Like you just pick a brand, or you want to be a YouTuber, and then you have to break it down to like who is the target audience for this brand. And then when you deconstruct graphic design and you deconstruct word and image, we go into various things: illustrations, photography, like what are they called? Like just like prints, textures, substrates. Something is like in print on paper, something is happening on social media, something is giant and on a hoarding. So then you have like these multiple like options, and you can do anything that you feel like it, right? And then you intersperse it. So of course, the most effective graphic design is when you don't even have to say anything. Like for example, you just put like your AIDS ribbon. That's so universally accepted. That's iconic. Like you never need to like do anything like beyond that, because there's no word in image. Something has taken on an identity of its own and stopped needing selling. So when you come down to it, so let's say I've made a magazine and I don't know anything about who's going to read it and what it's all about. So step one is like, who is going to read it? So let's say this magazine is for you. Now, what kind of fonts do you like? If I sit and make you like a boring magazine, which has like a lady in like a pink dress and like scripty font, and I'm like writing about like a car inside, then there's like a huge disconnect. So when you're making that design, whether you're making a Facebook post, whether you're making a poster, you always have to think of what is the history of like different types of fonts, different types of colors, what does like everything stand for. So because I'm like talking in the air, because I don't have like a focused target, so either I just come up with like examples on my own. So I had to redesign all the Penguin Classic books, and the goal was to make Penguin Classics appeal to younger people. So all our moms are always telling us about Oscar Wilde and Jane Austen and all these like old books that, you know, you're supposed to know, because lots of like referencing is happening around them. But then if I see a painting, a book that has like 100 like old oil paintings, it may not make me want to buy it. So then we had to take those same designs of these like vintage women and like leading ladies and rebrand the covers to appeal to someone who's your age, or even like in class 6 or 5. So how would you take something totally vintage and European and make it seem really cool and like the most important and fun thing to do this weekend to like a bunch of 13-year-olds? So you redefine that. We took all those like female like faces. Uh, I'll show them to you next time. Turn them into pop art. Added like neon colors and changed the narrative. So instead of being from like the girl's perspective of being this like, you know, single person with issues who had to find like a suitable match, we turned it into like leading like female ladies who had this strife and these challenges and how they came out of it. So it was about taking the exact same content and changing the perspective of selling the same thing but to a different audience. So if there is like a pizza again that I'm selling to you, I'm assuming, and like please totally reprimand me if I'm making terrible assumptions about your pizza taste. But I would be like, okay, cheese, like wholesome. Let's like, pack on like let's even cheese burst pizza, like put cheese in the crust. But if I'm trying to sell that same thing to like my mom, the whole language, the font, the line, everything would edit to become relevant to her. So like a 60-year-old or 70-year-old may want to indulge in something so amazing like once in a while. Whereas like for you, it's like a dream like weekend. So you change the style of all your communication of that same one product through graphic design by using color, font, image that is relevant to your audience. So no matter what project you do, first is always, always, always audience forward. And that's like, do you have any questions or any like, no? Okay, just like scrolling through. Okay.
If you have some examples, that would be kind of fun to see.
Okay, fine. So, for example, let's go to Little West Street. So every single person who comes to us as graphic designers, like comes to us with a problem, or they say that this is something new that we want to create. So how do we go about reaching our goal? So Little West Street wanted to start an e-commerce business and sell like blankets and beddings and all things for kids. And you have everything from like a newborn baby's accessories to like maybe maximum like someone who's 7 years old. So automatically like that vibe, like it's for children, right? So you automatically kind of start subduing everything, using like delicate fonts, keeping everything white and clean, because it's about safety. It's about just being cute. Like you want to see something and you want to be like, oh my god, this is so adorable, I have to buy it. So similarly, we created like a mascot who was at this address, and then this mascot celebrated like various different occasions, because this was based in India as well as New York. There was Easter, there was Diwali, there were all these like occasions on which like you give people gifts, whether it's Christmas, whether it's what else was there, baby showers. So this mascot sort of took you to Little West Street, and then that same brand language, the same fonts, the same color palette, the same general grid structure was then applied, which came from the logo to stationery, to the website, to the gift cards, and then even like the catalog. So if you see anything that has been done by this brand, whether you have only been given a business card, whether you have only seen the catalog, whether you have only seen the website, the second you see a second thing that has been made by this brand, you immediately know that it belongs to them. So it's also about creating a language across touch points. Very rarely will your graphic design assignment be to make one thing, right? Because nowadays we're just inundated with like so much information. Like you can't make like one thing and have it be everlasting and timeless. So this is something that's clearly for like younger people. But then let's say we go to PR Pandit, the next one. So that's like the most high tech, high flying, like fast speed PR agency in India. And they wanted to look really efficient and they just wanted like one page, like a single page website. And like red means passion. All the leading brands in like the world are red, whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's like Virgin Atlantic, the airline. So most, whether it was Kingfisher. So red has like all this like connotation that's much more high energy, these graphic styles, black, white, big words, that becomes more in line with like something that's so like speedy. Like PR agencies basically take your product and then they create a buzz. Like they're supposed to take one thing and make it go viral. That's their job. So that whole, and they also do it across at least this agency. Like they had many different verticals. Like they work in retail, they work in startups, luxury products, social sector. So how we could take that one thing, which is like their logo is those three lines. Like a pandit has three lines. So we took the three pandit lines and turned them into all the various things that they do. But if you see, because right now, because this is the first of three sessions, we're going to keep it really basic and discuss like, color, typography, grid. And then after that, we will go to the next round. Now, I don't know whether we should, okay, let's see. If you go to the first thing, Go Gourmet. Go Gourmet is about making like it's like factory made gourmet food. So no human being is like touching it. No human being is sitting with a rolling pin and like being at it. Literally, like they supply food to Domino's. They supply vegetables to Starbucks, to Subway, to Taco Bell, to everybody. So they have loads and loads of like fresh produce coming in every day. And then they thought we have so much stuff. Let's like just make our own recipes out of it and sell it to other people and make our own restaurant. So Go Gourmet was that. So our leading thing was to show people that it's super clean and it's super fresh and it's super nutritious. So when we designed for them, as you can see, it's just like photos, like it's just watercolor paintings of, tomatoes, mustard, beans, quinoa, and then we kind of put it together and put words on it to tell people like what it is, to create this super fresh like packaging and website and social media assignment. So even the signage, if you scroll down where it says coffee wrap, sandwiches, meal bowl, salads, and fresh smoothies, and the word Go Gourmet is still like reinforcing that it's vegetables and fruits that are fresh, and everything is against a white background to show that it's super sanitized and super clean. And that's why when we're taking photographs also, we're not like the only person touching the food is that final eater who's like picking up the wrap and like putting it in their mouth. And thankfully that became very relevant to the pandemic times. But in this way, because usually when you see food photography, people have like thrown pomegranate like all across the blackboard. Everyone's using like rustic things and like napkins and cutlery. So if you go to La Cane Cuts, which is number 3 on this website, I'm sorry if someone's vegetarian, because this is a pure like sausage, ham and bacon brand that wanted to be like, okay, we're online and we're frozen and we're chilled, but all our meat has come from like Germany and one more place in Europe. So that had to be really rustic. It had to have like, like the first product there is like Nuremberg sausages. So blue and white is like a color that's sort of synonymous with like Bavaria, right? So you sit and think of what are you trying to say? I'm trying to say these sausages have their roots in Germany. So we're naming them in a certain way, which is using words. And then we're creating imagery that represents what we culturally believe to be like German. And similarly, chorizo, which is like the next big image, the chorizo sausage, that has your little like salsa happening on the side, and it has your like tomato and some leaves. So we're trying to like then connote Spain and chorizo while basically being in Delhi and Gurgaon through word and image. And because this is not a fresh product, we've kind of kept it a little like dark. And because it's a butchery, it's like meat, it's a little bit like, it's also very difficult to shoot 16 different sausages in 16 different styles. So if you go further down, like the cheese sausage and the breakfast sausage, like the breakfast sausages with a skillet and your mustard, which is something that you would probably like just eat for breakfast without like dirtying dishes. So you basically sit and think about every single aspect possible, about every single thing that you have to communicate. Let me see if there's anything else on this that's widely. Should we look at marketing for a beer company? Now you've all seen the link, or maybe we should not. Okay, let's look at To Be Healthy, which is number 2. So this is like a gourmet chip company where they charge a bomb for their chips. Like, I can't afford the chips. I wait for like a 40% sale, right? So how are you supposed to take like essentially bhindi and chickpeas and beetroot and make it look like it's worth like almost 200 rupees for like a bag of air? So then you make packaging that looks extremely expensive, and you make stationery that looks extremely expensive through, as you can see, like when you see this packet, you don't think it's for 10 rupees, right? Because it's very subdued, like the typography is very like high contrast, the colors are very rich, and it's almost like minimal. Whereas if you put this packaging next to like a magic masala or like a kurkure, that will be super bright, like super like, blue and orange, and you'll have like coriander jumping in from somewhere and salt jumping in from somewhere else. And then you're like, okay, I'm not scared of these chips. They must not be expensive. Let me buy them. But what have you essentially used as a tool to separate a To Be Healthy and a magic masala? Word, colors, fonts, which all come together and form image. So that is essentially the main thought that I want to like leave you with, that every time you want to make a birthday party invite, every time you want to raise money for something, every time you want to give a gift, create fan art, make anything that is counted as graphic design, you have to think of who is my target audience, what color will they like, what font will they like, what kind of language tone should I be speaking to them in? Should I be funny? Should I be serious? Is this the time to be funny? Is my audience going to have a sense of humor? Like, can we go back and see witty? So witty is a multivitamin, and it's a product that's for both children as well as for adults. And it's so every single thing. So when you make a logo, like that's branding is part of graphic design. You sit and think of, okay, what is a vitamin? It's like a nutrient also. And then we basically went down to like the cell structure of a vitamin, and all vitamins come in hexagons. You have to get your vitamins, like it's like a daily to-do list, like, oh, I need my nutrition. So that becomes the V. And then primary colors are the building block. Like till you don't have all your nutrition in place, you can't live like a, perfectly healthy life. So this logo did not have to appeal to this was like a wide audience, right? Like we wanted the whole country to buy these multivitamins. So it's not childish, it's not like adult, it's not expensive, it's not cheap, it's very basic, which in itself is also like an art. So these colors are basically primary colors, and they don't like they don't make your mind like particularly go anywhere. And then when we started, let's say, taking that same graphic design forward into making website design, making packaging design, making a catalog, we had to be very careful in keeping it very neutral while giving a lot of information, right? Here you have to not rely on image and color and word beyond it just being a tool for categorization. So everything orange belongs to one product. Everything like blue belongs to one product. Like you can't be like, oh, now I'm going to use a script font to sell multivitamins. So all these, by sheer practice, by helping, your relatives like set up their Instagram pages, by doing, like it'll all come to you once that seed has been planted in your mind as to who am I talking to, and then everything else will follow. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. Then
I wonder if something for all of you guys to think about is, like, we've got a really great base of what graphic design is all about and how you can start to really think about what it is you're trying to sell in a way. So for those of you who are working in internships, try thinking about what it is that your internship is about, right? If you're part of the counseling team, if you're part of the communications team, for development office, if you're part of CFI, what is it that this whole internship is about, and maybe how can you start to relate to that, right? So if you're thinking about counseling, what pictures come to mind, what kind of fonts and things like that. So looking at what Rupali has already covered, try to apply it to some of the things that you know or that you're passionate about.
And I think another way to go about this is, if it's difficult, if everyone's finding it a little difficult to like think of a brand, think of yourself as a brand, right? So you are a brand. And now if you had to communicate what you are all about to another person, what would your color palette be? Like what would be the 4 or 5 colors that you would pick to represent yourself? Like why? And same way, like fonts. And as you keep growing up, you realize that your personal color palette and your personal font choice will also keep changing and evolving like everything else in life. So I would say that on like a Word document, literally, don't even have to be too fancy. Like pick like a font style, 3 fonts. This will be your brand guideline if you are the brand. And then if you come for the next session, we will take that forward and make a poster of you using the language that you set after this session, right? So as a human being or as a personality or as however you want to appear to your friends or your families, pick 3 fonts, 3 colors, and a photography style. Like literally it could be anything. It could be, geometry, like it could be patterns, it could be a sunset, like whatever you feel represents you, and then also why. And in the next class, we'll put together those images with those fonts and those colors and make a poster using word and image that will essentially be a representation of you. And who is your target audience right now? Think of that. It's basically like all of you. So that's who's going to eventually see this assignment in play. And then in the last session, we'll figure out if that poster had to be sold or if you had to be sold as an entity, like how we would sell you. And I'm happy to do this assignment as well. And we can have like a show and tell next session.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Since you
So
do have another 15 minutes, I can give you one more like super nuanced example, because all of you are technically pretty much like most of you, same age, same demographic, right? Like pretty much 2 or 3 genders living in the same, like you meet the same data. Like all of us, even though we have, there's so many things that are unique about us, in like the marketing world just become a profile. Like we become like an age, a location. That's how you find your audience. So let's say there are 3 websites. I mean, there are 3 projects on my website, which are all hotels in Rajasthan. And they're all priced at the exact same price point. And they're pretty much like 3 hours away from each other. They all have airport access. So it's like, how do you give each of these 3 different places very like unique visual identities and sell the same thing in like different clothes and different fonts and different colors, right? So if you look at Narendra Bhavan on the website again, right? This is in Bikaner, and it's very like design forward, and it's one of those like Bikaner like is not a very, didn't have like a very great it wasn't a cool destination. Like very few people wanted to say I'm going to Bikaner, but we made it like extremely glamorous. If you go further down, like those are the oils for, like, you know, we made it very vintage. It has very like 50s, like art deco, dark, cool like vibe. You can like set up a glamorous lakeside dinner at every water body you find. You can go get massages from oils which are in this like really vintage packaging, and it's got that, you know, light pink, but it's still not like pink in your head is like for women, but that stops being the case here because it's just like we're selecting like a time period. And then similarly, if you go to Lakshman Sagar, which is the one like that's in Pali in Rajasthan, but that's way more rugged. It's more like rustic. It has a more dirty, like raw, natural vibe, even though the service is pretty like fancy and as immaculate as all the others. They've decided to go the local route. They told people you come and you have like this local Rajasthani experience. So we've used like local like lanterns, taps, and that kind of thing to tie it all in. And lastly, Suryagarh, which is the one in between the two, which is like a fortress. So the way we've communicated for this is all like wide open spaces, gold, white, you know, like super luxurious. Whereas literally like the same team is behind all 3 projects. But for the user, we're trying to find like, we're selling the same thing to like 3 different users. And because we have 3 different users, our style has edited and changed accordingly, right? So do you have any questions about like homework and like how to put this down on a Word file, or is it all good? Yes. Oh, it's all good. Okay.
What do you think? Are we supposed to do anything other than our colors and fonts and images and all of that?
So you imagine yourself as a brand, right? And then on a Word file, literally find fonts that are, you know, more like how, like when you, so let's say when you open like the font library on the Word file, like you'll know what you are being drawn to. But then you have to ask yourself like why? Like why am I drawn to this? Is it because it's a fun font? Is it because it's bold? Is it because it's dainty? And in that way, you will learn to understand that there are reasons for everyone liking something or relating to something that we don't always think about. Like if I see any packaging, any diary, in my head, like I immediately like have 20 thoughts like happening. I can imagine if I see like a bottle of perfume, right? Or if I see like, yeah, a bottle of perfume, it's like you know immediately like, maybe that's a bad example, but if you see like a box of cereal, right? Like you can automatically tell, is this going to be some like gourmet granola, or is this going to be like a fun like marshmallow filled like box of joy? But why are you feeling like that? You don't know, you've never eaten it, you haven't like, it's because something is really bright, something is red, something has like a little like mascot made on it, something is brown, someone has used like wood, someone has used wheat, raisins, all the things that you associate with like health. But is wheat actually healthy? Like no one knows. But it's like the reason why you, so whenever you see something and you make an assumption about it, you have to be like, why am I assuming this about the product? It's like, you know how they say don't judge a book by its cover? All graphic designers are like, no, you must judge a book by its cover. We have thought about it and put it down in that way. Like we're trying to tell you what's in the book through sheer design. So now let's imagine like you had to, but we're not going straight ahead and making a book cover of your life, right? We're going to go back and to be like, but what are you? Like, what are you about? And the person who knows best is you. So on a Word file, literally screenshot or insert images that you find of Google, that you find of Pinterest, choose fonts from your font library, and pick colors. There are many like websites that, you know, give color theory, that have like inspirational like boards. Like when I was young, I used to love purple, and now I love orange, and I don't know what it is about it, but then like maybe I'll think about it after this and know like what has changed, and it'll come together. So, you know, when you do quizzes on BuzzFeed and you say, or like on other things, and you know, it's like know your style, like what's your interior design style, or like pick 20 cookies and we will tell you like the perfect product for you. I mean, I don't know how like correct they are, but usually these assumptions are made on a series of choices that you make. You know, when you say, oh, this is like, I have found that I love like vintage things and pop things only because I've been asking, like when I I like something and then I ask myself, okay, why do I like it? And then once you have the answer to that, you have a better idea of what that brand is. So similarly, you are the brand. You literally put down on the sheet everything that you like. And then next class, we will take everything that you like and make you in graphic design. Yes, so I think this is a lot of like food for thought.
Thank you.
I think it makes sense, Rupali. I think you gave a great overview of kind of what we can do just to experiment with like expressing who we are.
Yeah.
We
As a
would,
starting point. Yeah.
yeah.
Eventually, when you're writing your resumes and your CVs, you can use those colors and those fonts and still keep to like the industry standard, but then they'll get like a hint of you like through it.
Yeah, and you guys can even use it for your own social media stuff, right? So when
Yeah.
you're kind of
Yeah.
trying to show who you are,
Yeah.
it's a great way for you to show like
when you make your business cards, when you make your stationery. Like even my mom, like when she asked me to make a CV, it's very different from how I make my own CV, even though, you know, it's the same structure, but it's in the little details that the difference happens.
Yep.
Yes?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like scrolling through to be like,
Priya, can I have a question? Can I ask a question?
of course.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nanda Kumar. I'm teaching art, so a little curious about design too. So we all, the earlier concept like golden proportion and, you know, the point of
great.
interest, all these kind of things. Are you guys still using this, or is it very old and discarded ideas?
So it was one of the first things that I learned at uni, the golden section. And at that time we were told that, remember when you used to have iPods?
Right.
Imagine who would have, so the iPods were actually built on the golden section. So right now I've deconstructed design to, word and image. But when you put that together, then these like quiet grids and all do show up. The only thing is, because now everything is so like computerized, you are already given like a set of like grids. Like if I open a new document and I say, layout and margins, then I can say, oh, I want 12 columns, 25 rows, I want the gutter to be this much. So the tools that we are using to create design in like an efficient and fast way have sort of tried to eliminate the grids that you're talking about, so that your eye goes to like the most magical part of that proportion. But if one reads about it, then you can always like superimpose it yourself. But the way technology is moving, these things like whenever I hire someone new, like I still have a lot of classical training because like my art teacher, in fact in school I was told that I can't like do commercial art. And I was like, oh my God, how can you say that? And then I went and became a graphic designer. And my art teacher is still like in shock. She calls me like her second child. But it's because all this classical training, whether it is how to do watercolors, whether it is the golden section, whether it is the fundamentals of abstraction, which are all things I'm sure you're like teaching everyone, like they definitely make you a better or more deep thinking designer than like people who have no idea. So everything that you learn in art actually forms the basis of design. Like if I'm making a logo or packaging for like a mustard brand, I think I have that line here actually. And if I'm sitting and redrawing, like, so that's like a mustard packaging. So that was a logo that says, I don't know if it's mustard wale, yeah. And then we drew all these like mustard leaves and all online. But till I have not learned the basics of shading, of how to, make a stem look three-dimensional, I can't do it on even a computer. So even though technology is pulling us away, like they're eliminating like hand-drawn processes and, historical physics from like centuries, I genuinely feel like it's very important. And if you have like access to this through like an art teacher, then definitely use art as a base for design. Because what's eventually going to separate you is like design like this, which is half handmade, half digital made. And it makes you want to, I hope, buy mustard when you look at it.
Thank you, Rupali. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rupali. I have one final question, actually. So in terms of trying to brand yourself and sell yourself in kind of that manner, do you have tips on how you identify like elements within yourself that you should show? Like, how do you figure out with whatever it is that you're trying to sell, the best pieces to pull up and showcase?
So I feel like so I'm going to go back to when I did something similar in school, because I feel like as time goes on, you think much more about things internally. Like usually when you're like younger, you're interested in what you want to see next and all that. So it's just, and when you grow a little bit older, you realize that every single thing that I liked as a child, that I enjoyed doing when I was younger, is actually a very intrinsic like part of me. Before you head out into the real world, and the real world like forces you in directions that you may not have wanted or also ended up really liking. When you are like, okay, I would break it down into what are the things you like to do, right? What are your favorite subjects? What is like your favorite like memory? Like maybe someone loved like riding horses and someone else like loves swimming, right? Maybe it could be about like your favorite food. But that's like the imagery part. If it's words, you can write like 3 things that you feel are really like positive about you, 3 things that you feel are extremely like that you're not happy about. Though actually like everyone is the whole spectrum and you should accept even your terrible parts. And similarly, like in terms of like when you say color, like if you got to choose what color like your room should be, like what color would you pick? Without actually having to change your room color, you know, then you're like, okay, I like this color, but maybe I do not want to live in like orange. So maybe like when you're feeling angry, like all your emotions, like if you feel angry, like what image like comes out of that? And I want to leave it open-ended, but what I can do is maybe break it down into numbers, right? So 3 fonts, 3 colors, 5 images. So I want to also keep it easy. And if you love homework, you can do this like multiplied by 20. That's also fine. But when you're doing graphic design, you're supposed to be as simple and as effective. So I should make it difficult to choose, like edit and keep those 5 things that truly resonate. It could literally just be like a bowl of like, I don't know, pasta. That's also fine.
That would be me.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Like because my room is separate and my work is separate, right? Like I managed to like make all my walls yellow, you know, because I don't have to like live in it. And then I was like, okay, I'm really into this color. And then I asked myself, I was like, okay, why am I turning my entire like life into yellow? And then I did some research, and it's all offset by like aquamarine. Like my table is also pretty much okay, I don't know, aquamarine. And then I did some like research, and it said that yellow is actually, this particular yellow is a color of learning and energy and like, you know, just passion and movement, which is what I chose for work. And blue is supposed to, steel halfway in between is supposed to be just like happiness and like good energy. So without realizing, this is what I felt, like that's what it like ended out being. So once you know you like green, or once you know you're being very like into dark blue, then you can read like color theory and figure out why. And then if in the future you need to sell something, then you have that like experience that okay, like dark blue represents this. So like dark blue represents like expensive, like royalness, like, you know, peacocks are like blue and they attract like other birds and human beings. So then when it's time to like apply that theory, only if you've asked yourself a question and got this answer, will you be able to be like, okay, like this is something that this type of person is drawn to, or this color stands for this, or this font stands for this. Which is why we will only start with you, so it doesn't get overwhelming, and then we will take it from there.
Thank you, Rupali. Thank you so much for your time.
Most welcome.
I would love to see all of you guys next week, Thursday again, for her follow-up on this. Though, I mean, it's totally up to you how you want to kind of pick and choose what sessions you come in on. Also, next Tuesday, Rupali will be starting sessions for social media management as well. So if this is something you're interested in, join us on Tuesdays for that, and Thursdays for graphic design. And we'll keep building on these skills for kind of how you can become a better graphic designer.
Yeah. And if you have any kind of like passion project, like last thing, like for example, like in my house there's like a home cook situation happening. So everyone like cooks and they're selling food because my dad's been in the food business for years. And then like there are 100 home cooks right now in lockdown. But it was like, why would people buy food from us and like not from anyone else? So every time I would take like a very beautiful photo of a burger, like orders were very like iffy. But then one day I like eat a huge bite and then I forgot. Then I had to take a picture. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to take a picture of like an eaten burger. And that got like the most orders because everyone wanted to eat that burger. So that neat, clean, like, you know, almost like too good to be true picture was not as effective as that dirty feeling of like, you know, someone's like mouth in bread that actually worked better, you know, because it's like the target audience was hungry and wanted to eat a burger. So we gave them meat and burger. So anyway, that's the
On that note, let's all get some food.
yeah. It's time. Awesome. Thank you
All right.
for coming.
Thank
And if
you, Rupali.
yeah.